What's up, everyone? This is Dr. Webb here. Today, I want to talk about the concept of being intelligent and getting into medical school and becoming a doctor. A lot of people think that you have to be really intelligent, you have to be really smart, um, you have to be at the top of your class. I think those are partially true, but that's not true in every case. I recently watched a TED Talk and the title of the TED Talk was Why Some Students Fail and Why Some Students Succeed. The speaker and psychologist, she went to graduate school and she studied students in really challenging environments and really challenging situations. And her main question was, who was successful here and why? Her research team went to the military academy, the West Point Military Academy, and they studied cadets, the military cadets, and they tried to predict which cadets will be around to graduate or finish their military training. They went to the National Spelling Bee and they tried to predict which students would get to the end of the spelling bee, or which students would get the furthest. They went to basically private companies and they tried to predict which salespeople would make the most money, or which salespeople would stick around the longest in their first year of being a salesperson. They went to the really challenging environments or areas that have high levels of poverty, and they looked at the schools there, the first year teachers or the rookie teachers, and they tried to predict which teachers would be most successful and most effective during that first year. All of these various concepts, these different environments, from the military West Point Academy to being a salesperson or being a teacher, there was one characteristic that emerged as a significant predictor of success, and it wasn't their level of IQ. You have to be very intelligent you have to have some level of intelligence to get into the military West Point Academy. You have to have some level of tenacity to become a teacher in an environment like that. And you have to have some level of personality to you to be a salesperson. But it wasn't their social intelligence, it wasn't their good looks, it wasn't the physical health, it wasn't their IQ. What they found that the most significant predictor of success in all of those environments was a concept called grit. And grit is having passion and perseverance for a very long term, or for very long term goals. And I'm not talking about for weeks or for months or for a few years. I'm talking about for multiple years. It's basically sticking with your future day in and day out, and basically having stamina. So she started studying grit in the Chicago public school system, and she gave questionnaires to about 1,000 juniors in high school, and she stuck around for a year to just try to see who would graduate. And her results show that grittier kids were more significantly likely to graduate than non-grittier kids, or less grittier kids. And this is despite kind of matching the students to their income, their family income, to their standardized test scores, or whether their family or their family members or had higher educational levels. It did show that grittier kids are more likely to graduate. So grit matters not only at the West Point Academy or and a salesperson or a new teacher or the spelling bee. It also matters for kids that are high risk for dropping out. And it showed that basically when everyone talks about talent and having talent that will get you to a level of success or reaching your goals, that's not necessarily the case, because their studies show that grit was inversely related to actually talent. And everyone talks about, you hear about the concept of that hard work beats talent, and I firmly agree with that. The best idea that she had about building grit in children or students, because she was always asked, how can I kind of encourage, or how can I get my kid to have some grit? And the best idea that she came up with was a concept called growth mindset. And this idea was actually developed at Stanford University by Dr. Carol Dweck. And it's the belief that there's an ability to learn. It's not fixed, and it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck came up with the kind of the philosophy or idea that when students read and learn about the brain and how it changes and how it grows and changes basically in response to challenges, they're more likely to persevere in times of failure because they believe failure is not a permanent condition. They actually look forward to it and they embrace it. So growth mindset, I think, is a great idea to kind of building grit. There was another study in 2013 that that actually comprised a suite of ideas and traits and beliefs that are kind of compromise the idea of grit. And that was having goal directedness, kind of knowing where to go and how to get there. Motivation is number 2, having a strong will to achieve a goal. Number 3 was self-control. That's basically avoiding distractions and focusing on the task at hand. And number 4 was a positive mindset, kind of embracing challenges and using failure as a learning opportunity. So I thought this TED Talk and this study was pretty interesting because everyone talks about that you have to be intelligent to become a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or become a millionaire. There have been many millionaires and many successful people who don't even go to school, who didn't even graduate from high school or from college, but they have grit. And that's what I had when I was going through the years. Those years of being rejected, I applied to medical school 3 times. Standardized test taking was not my forte. I struggled with it, and I still struggle with it to this day. And I can be the first to tell you that I am not the smartest person. I was not the smartest person in my class. There's people who came from Harvard, from Yale, having 4.0s from at the top of their class at Stanford, at Columbia. But I succeeded in medical school, and I got into medical school because of grit. There was nothing that was going to stop me or be in my way of reaching my goal was to become a doctor. And I don't care if it took me 6 or 7 times, 8, 9, 10 times of applying to medical school. I would have got in and I would have passed medical school with flying colors because I had grit. And in medical school, when my classmates read a chapter 1 time or 2 times for a test, I read that same chapter 6 or 7 times. Because, like I said, hard work beats talent any day. So I want to challenge you guys, and I also want to encourage you guys to basically never give up. When people say that you're not smart enough, when people say that you'll never get into medical school, that you'll never become a doctor, that you can't do it, when your advisors tell you that go ahead and pick another career, that medicine is not for you, they told me those same things. And I had the tenacity, I had the perseverance, I had the passion that I was never going to give up, and I was going to continuously work towards my goal on a day in and day out basis. So, want you guys to have some grit when you're trying to reach your goals. I don't care if you want to get into nursing school, PA school, become a teacher, a lawyer, an engineer. You have to have some grit. And I think if you have grit, that's going to keep you going, and that's going to far outlast talent any day. This is Dr. Webb. If you guys have any more questions, email me at overcomingtheoddsbook@gmail.com or contact me on my website at antoniowebbmd.com. See you next time.